So I've been looking at the backlog in Brown County, and it seems by most accounts it's the worst situation compared to other counties in the state. Is that kind of what you guys have been seeing from your office?
There are cases, there are clients, applicants to the public defender's office who have applied for services with us. They qualify for services with us, and yet we are not able to find a lawyer to assign to handle their cases. That happens in some counties across the state. Even up by Brown County, there's one county, Waushara County, that has absolutely no lawyers, no civil lawyers, no criminal lawyers that practice within their county. We've been suffering that kind of drought in this state since before the backlog, and it only worsened after the backlog because two things happened. We lost a substantial number of staff public defenders in our offices across the state, and we lost a substantial number of our private bar partners who take our cases and help us alleviate, the numbers of cases that we cannot take. Some of those cases that we can't take because they are conflicts of interest with clients that we are already handling. But in many instances, we also could not take cases, as I mentioned before, because we did not have staff in all of our offices. So that really addresses both of the backlogs I think that you asked about.
How does the situation in Brown County compare to other counties in the state?
I don't have the numbers for other counties in the state in terms of the prosecution of cases or the lack of prosecution. I just know that there are some cases that are very severe. There are some counties where, as I said before, we just don't have lawyers at all, and we rely on lawyers to travel from other counties. We rely on our private bar partners very heavily, and when those lawyers are overloaded, we just can't appoint until we, either get more lawyers, hire more lawyers, or something gives.
I guess what about the list of inmates that need representation that qualify for your office that have the conflict? Is that list longer in Brown County than compared to other lists in other counties?
We do have conflict cases that are waiting to be appointed in Brown County. That list, in my mind, is not longer than it is in other parts of the state. Um, I I can tell you that we do have a long list for appointments on the western side of the state, and generally, northern Wisconsin has suffered for a number of years from our inability to find lawyers to handle the cases, both on the private bar side, and then when we lose staff, that issue is exacerbated. We have in the middle of the state, for example, the Stevens Point and Wausau area, all the way up to Rhinelander. Half of our attorney staff, those positions are vacant right now.
How about for public defenders in Brown County? What's kind of the current situation? Is there a need for more? Are there a lot of openings?
So in Brown County right now, we are fully staffed based on what we've been allotted by the state legislature for that area. I do have to add that the Brown County office does not cover only Brown County. It also covers Kewaunee and Dorr. It's part of a larger region that includes Appleton, Calumet County, Shawano, Peshtigo, Marinette. So the lawyers in that region of the state are pulled in a number of different directions to cover all the work that's being provided by prosecutors and their charging decisions in those counties.
Do you feel the legislature should add positions in that office so there are more?
So we're a statewide agency, and the request that the public defender law firm has made to the legislature is to add more positions to the state public defender agency. We asked for 52 support positions, 46 support positions and 6 attorney positions in the last budget. We were given 12 and a half positions. That's woefully understaffing us based on that ask. Um, there is a bill that's being worked on by Representative Steffen to add more staff to the SPD, more staff attorneys, more Support staff, yeah, we really need what we've asked for, and I am praying that the legislature this time around provides us with what we need. But the major thing to understand is we don't determine our workload. Our workload is determined by how many charges the prosecutors put forward in each of the counties. And so if crime is down, if there's a lot of prosecution going on, then there's a demand for public defenders. If charging is down, crime is down, then the demand on finding public defenders to assign to cases and clients also goes down. We don't control that ebb and flow of work. And right now, it seems to be at a pretty high demand, especially in Brown County.
How much, if you were to get, more positions in the next state budget, would that help alleviate the need for finding outside attorneys at all?
Well, the public defender is designed to always need private bar partners. We can't do this work without private bar partners. We will have situations where multiple people, again, because this is how the prosecution determines how they're going to file charges after reviewing police reports. But in multiple situations, we will have many people sometimes charged together with committing a crime together, allegedly. In that situation, my public defender staff can only handle one individual's case and represent that person through the court system. All the other individuals, whether it's one or 20 more people, would have to be represented by our private bar partners. And we're thankful for them. But frankly, we just don't have enough private bar partners or staff. And so another request we made in a recent budget request was for the legislature to look at increasing the private bar payment rate from $100 to $125 in very, very serious cases. Those are the cases where we have the most trouble in getting and encouraging and having private bar take over and help on the representation. I know right now there's a case pending in Brown County with over 20 individuals charged together in some kind of drug case. Um, if there's a conflict of interest, again, we're only going to be able to represent one of those individuals.
I think that's the case we've been looking at. I don't know if you know any of the names, but James Grandberry, he's the one who put in the appeal saying, "Hey, I've been in court and now it's more than 400 days without an attorney, and he's trying to get his charges thrown out because of it." Um, and we just got the updated list. It said that your office had made 5,200 contacts and still couldn't find an attorney. Is that like on the higher end, I suppose, for a number of contacts trying to find somebody?
It is quite a few. I can't confirm whether that's the number in any one specific instance or case type even. But it doesn't surprise me that we would have made hundreds of calls and doubled back and called some of the same individuals over and over and over again for a matter that's been pending for a number of weeks or even months. We are in a constitutional crisis here in the state of Wisconsin. And although we don't have a law that says after 300 days or 400 days waiting for an attorney, your case would be dismissed, or even that you would be released from custody, there are states that are having similar issues across the U.S. And they do have those laws on the books, and that is the action that they're taking.
What is the process like right now for your office to try to find an outside attorney?
So we developed a CAP unit, a client appointment project, several years ago. That unit makes calls to lawyers that are certified to handle public defender cases, juvenile, mental health, as well as misdemeanor, felony, whatever case type it is. If you're a lawyer that's been signed up and certified to take public defender appointments, that unit will call you and ask you about taking cases. We send out emails to that same group, and I think an email goes out bright and early every Monday from the unit. We also have text messages that are sent to our private bar partners, asking them to take cases. And, we have staff lawyers that are sitting in courtrooms where those private bar lawyers might be practicing. And so often there are simply, hey, we've got this kind of case pending back at the office. Could you take a look at it? You might be interested in it. You might be a good defender for it. Please consider it. I make calls. Other members of our agency leadership team make calls. We are doing everything that we can to really hound the private bar lawyers that we have available to us in Wisconsin to take these cases. And I understand there are only so many cases that any one lawyer can take. It would be great if we could get a huge infusion of lawyers. I don't know where we would get them from, but it would be great to have a huge infusion. That's probably what we need. And right now, I'd take 100, 150 lawyers to really get us going on addressing what I call to be the backlog, and that would be those individuals who are sitting in jail. As I said before, though, I think prosecutors who control the workflow for all of us could dismiss that other part of the backlog, and we'd be sitting pretty good.
Is it more so about just the lack of attorneys, or is it more the pay?
Um, is what
Is
the
it more the difficulty in finding an outside attorney? Is it more so about, hey, there's just not enough attorneys out there, or is it, we've heard that they charge sometimes three times the rate what they would get if they took one of these cases from your office?
Well, what I have been told is that the private bar attorneys lose money when they take a public defender appointment that is so low in terms of the reimbursement rate right now. Yeah, they can probably get almost three times that rate by handling any other type of case, just a real estate transaction, for example. So pay is a factor. The people who do this work, whether they're staff lawyers or private bar lawyers, though, are lawyers who genuinely have a heart to help people who are poor, who are in the legal system, and who need their expertise. I think that many, if not all, of the public or the private bar partners that are helping carry this public defender workload, I think many of them are overloaded. And if the pay were a little bit higher, it would help bring them into the fold. Yes, they would turn down that other work. Yes, they would probably have more ability to, take on a few more public defender cases. It would help us out greatly if they could do that. But look, everybody's got to pay student loans. Everybody's got to, afford a living, pay for food and shelter for themselves as well. And I understand that. And that's why we're advocating for an increased rate for our private bar partners. And we're not going, all out in terms of the amount. Like I said, they could probably get three times the $100 an hour rate that we're offering. If we'd go up to 125, I'm sure we would see a pretty substantial increase in some of those case types that we're looking to have private bar help us out with. Uh, I'm sure they would look to take those on and help us out.
As far as the conflicts go, you said, hey, that drug case with 20 different people on it, we can only take one of those defendants. Should that be relaxed at all? What the definition is of a conflict, so your office can take on more people?
Well, first and foremost, the reason that we can only take on one individual under that conflicts rule, that's not a made-up rule. That's not a Wisconsin-only rule. That's an American Bar Association standard that all 50 states, defense lawyers, judges, and prosecutors abide by. Relaxing it would mean that we'd have a lot of do-overs. We'd have a lot of appeals, and we'd have a lot of issues where clients would feel that their lawyer was not loyal to them, and simply appeal their conviction, not trust and rely on the advice that they were given. Um, I am open to looking at all of the conflicts policies. I'm also open to, as I said before, looking at evidence-based decision making, charging practices, everything that impacts the way that we do our work. And part of the process of going through, the legislation that Representative Stefan has proposed will bring us all together to think about and to talk about all of those possible alternatives that could impact, reduce, and meet the demands that clearly, we have in this constitutional crisis.
I- Is there a state definition with conflicts though? That could that be changed at all, or is it there's just one that's for everybody on through the bar association?
There's a Supreme Court rule. I think maybe that's what you're referring to. The Supreme Court of Wisconsin has adopted rules related to conflict, loyalty, confidentiality, and communication with clients. And those are the rules that we all follow.
All states follow the same set.
Uh, our state follows the American Bar Association rules and the model rules as well. I can't speak for every single state adopting one version or the other, but with regard to the co-defendant conflict rule that you mentioned earlier, yes, all 50 states have a rule that is pretty specific to you represent one individual out of a group of folks who get charged.
I guess one question I have is, from the public standpoint, how can you ensure that they should be confident that your office is doing everything that it can to find attorneys for these inmates that are sitting in the jail?
I think they can be confident by remembering a few things. I think first and foremost, the legal system does not exist with public defenders alone. Uh, One way that I've heard people characterize it, it's a three-legged stool. Prosecution, judges, and defenders are needed in order for our court system to work appropriately. And when one side or the other is not staffed appropriately, then the stool falls over and the system does not work well. I think another principle that I think about is, a balloon. And if you can imagine one of those squeezy balloons where, there's air and the balloon takes on a certain shape. But if you squeeze one side and all of the work goes over to the other side and it's unfunded as well, that creates a disproportionate amount of work and a disproportionate response to the work that might exist. And so, what you're seeing, and you've asked about it already, you're seeing people sitting in jail waiting for an appointment. You're seeing, prosecutors complain about the fact that police are maybe charging people or issuing tickets or whatever, and they just don't have enough staff to respond to and review and make decisions about charging. But what you're hearing from the public defender is that we also are not staffed appropriately. And it's necessary not simply to add judges or to add 42 or 60 prosecutors across the state to respond to one part of what is a perceived backlog, but it's important to look at the entire court system and to make a determination about what is necessary. I feel that the public defender should have received more positions in the last budget, and I'm hopeful that with the legislation introduced by Representative Stefan and supported by members of the legislature, that will be rectified, that the three-legged stool will be back fixed again, standing upright, doing the work that taxpayers pay all of us to do day in, day out in this court system.